I never thought I'd be the kind of person to write a story like this, but here I am. I don't expect sympathy. Just need to get this off my chest. It all started when my dad remarried. I was 17 and Lisa, my stepsister, was 18. We weren't close at first. She had her life, I had mine. But over time something shifted. Lisa was always the kind of girl who got attention. Confident, a little reckless, always teasing people. I used to think it was just her personality, but sometimes the way she looked at me made me wonder. Still, I never let my thoughts go there. She was my stepsister. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. Years passed and we both moved out. Different places, different lives. She started dating Mark, a guy everyone loved. Smart, successful, the kind of boyfriend you introduce to your parents without hesitation. Meanwhile, I met Emma. Sweet, caring, the kind of girl who saw the best in people. We were happy. Least I thought we were. Lisa and I reconnected more as we got older. Nothing inappropriate, just casual texts, occasional meetups. But there was always something unspoken between us. I'd catch her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she laughed at my jokes felt different. Maybe it was all in my head, but part of me didn't care. It wasn't until a family gathering that things really started to change. We were all at my dad's house. Parents laughing in the living room, Mark chatting with my dad, Emma helping my stepmom in the kitchen. Lisa and I were outside sitting on the patio just talking. She was drinking wine, playing with the rim of the glass. You ever feel like you're living a life that doesn't belong to you? She asked. Shrugged. Sometimes. Why? She sighed. I don't know. Mark is great, but I don't feel like myself around him. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't going to encourage whatever she was hinting at, but I also wasn't about to lie and say I hadn't noticed it too. The conversation stayed with me for days. I started overthinking everything. Every moment we'd shared, every touch that lasted a second too long. Was I imagining it? Or was there really something there? One evening Lisa texted me. Come over. Just to talk. I hesitated. Emma was out with friends. I could have just ignored it. But I didn't. I told myself it was harmless. That I just wanted to check on her, make sure she was okay. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the whole truth. I showed up at Lisa's apartment telling myself it was just a talk. That's what she had said, and that's what I wanted to believe. But the second she opened the door, I knew it was a lie. She was wearing an oversized sweatshirt, her hair slightly messy like she hadn't planned to see anyone, but her eyes told a different story. She stepped aside to let me in, closing the door quietly behind me. I didn't think you'd actually come, she said, almost like a challenge. I swallowed hard. You said you needed to talk. She nodded, walking to the kitchen to pour a drink. You did. I do. She handed me a glass, then leaned against the counter. I can't stop thinking about it. I didn't ask what she meant. Already knew. I took a sip, buying myself time. Lisa, She shook her head. Just don't say it. Silence filled the space between us, thick and suffocating. I should have left. I should have told her this was a mistake. But when she stepped closer, looking up at me with that same unreadable expression, I didn't move away. Her fingers brushed against mine, and it was like something snapped. Months, maybe years, of tension unraveled in an instant. I wasn't thinking about Emma. I wasn't thinking about Mark. The only thing that mattered in that moment was her. When she kissed me, I didn't stop her. I didn't even hesitate. It was slow at first, hesitant, like we were both waiting for the other to change their mind. But neither of us did. Her hands tangled in my hair, my grip tightened around her waist, and suddenly there was no turning back. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this was the point of no return. But it didn't feel wrong. It felt inevitable. Like we'd been fighting this for so long that giving in wasn't a choice anymore. It was a release. By the time it was over, the room felt different. Colder. Quieter. Lisa lay beside me, staring at the ceiling, her breathing slow and steady. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then, finally, she whispered, "We can't let this happen again." I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. You don't regret it, do you? I didn't answer. Because the truth was I didn't know. The guilt didn't hit me right away. For a while, it almost felt like it hadn't happened. Like it was some hazy memory that didn't belong to me. But then reality started creeping in. The way Lisa and I avoided each other at family gatherings. The way Emma would smile at me, completely unaware, while I felt like a fraud. Lisa wasn't handling it any better. Mark started noticing something was off. She was distant, distracted, always checking her phone like she was waiting for something. We barely talked, but when we did, it was short, tense. Just a few words, a glance that lingered too long. It was enough. I thought I could pretend everything was normal. That if I acted like nothing happened, it would eventually stop feeling real. But Lisa wasn't letting go that easily. Late at night I'd get messages from her. I can't stop thinking about it, do you regret it? Tell me I'm not crazy. I never knew how to respond. Because I didn't regret it. That was the worst part. I should have felt disgusted with myself, ashamed, something. But every time I closed my eyes I thought about her. About the way she had looked at me that night. The way she had whispered my name. Emma started noticing the change. She'd ask me why I was so quiet if something was wrong. I'd smile, tell her everything was fine, and she'd believe me. That should have made me feel worse, but it didn't. Just made it easier to keep lying. Then came the close calls. A friend saw Lisa and me talking at a party, standing a little too close, our voices a little too low. Did something happen between you two? They asked, half joking. I laughed it off, but I could see the way Lisa stiffened. We weren't being careful. Or maybe we just didn't care anymore. One night she called me. Her voice was shaky. I need to see you. Almost said no. I almost told her it had to stop. But I didn't. I was already out the door before I could convince myself otherwise. Lisa wasn't herself when I got there. She was pacing, her hands shaking. The second she saw me, she said, "Mark knows." My stomach dropped. What do you mean he knows? She swallowed hard. He went through my phone. The messages. Everything. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. There was no fixing this. No covering it up. It was over. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Mark's name. I didn't pick up, but a text followed. We need to talk. Now asterisk asterisk. I knew I couldn't avoid it. When I got home, he was already outside, waiting. The second I stepped out of the car, he was on me. How long? His voice was tight, controlled, but his fists were clenched. I didn't answer. What was there to say? Was it just once, he pressed? Or have you been sneaking around behind my back this whole time? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. His jaw tensed. You were my friend. I thought he was going to hit me. Maybe I deserved it. But he just let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. You know what? She's your problem now. Then he turned and walked away. I stood there watching him leave, knowing I had just destroyed everything. When I went inside, Emma was on the couch, her face pale. She must have heard everything. She looked at me and I saw the moment it clicked. The realization. The betrayal. Tell me it's not true, she whispered. Couldn't. Tears welled in her eyes. I trusted you. Her voice cracked, but she didn't yell. That made it worse. She wasn't angry. She was broken. I reached for her, but she pulled away. Don't. There was nothing left to say. She grabbed her keys, walked out, and didn't look back. By the next day, it was all over. Mark was done with Lisa. Emma was gone. And Lisa and we didn't talk. Not really. He texted me once. I don't know what to do now. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Me neither. That was the last time we spoke.